Hello everybody, welcome back to another video on the channel, Mr. Football Loons, and today we are doing Game Week 29 of the Premier League. And we're going to start off on the 12th of March, and it's going to be Brighton home against Liverpool. I'm going to predict 2-0 Liverpool. Now, Brighton have been on an iffy moment. The past 4 games they have lost, which is pretty poor. Liverpool, on the other hand, they've won the last bazillion games. They're doing really well. They've got a 1-0 win against West Ham. They're doing seriously well. They're in a title race. I don't think they'll get there. I think they're just finishing second. But the reason why I say 2-0, Brighton on poor form, Liverpool on good form. Liverpool got a lot to fight for, the title. Brighton, they're just in that mid-table spot. They lost to Newcastle as well. It was unlucky for Brighton losing against Newcastle. They did give it a really good go. And maybe even they probably did deserve it. But they didn't get it. They're on poor form. And I don't think it's going to happen for them today. Moving on, Brentford home against Burnley. And I'm going to say 2-1 to Brentford. Now, Brentford did get a good win last game, 3-1 away against Norwich City, which was quite a dandy win. It's exactly what they wanted to stay up. And I still think they definitely will, 100%, stay up. But Burnley, I personally think they're definitely in for a relegation battle. Last game, they lost 4-0 against Chelsea. I predicted 1-1 for some reason, just because usually they draw loads, and last time they played against Chelsea, they drew 1-1. They did hit like the crossbar 3 times, and they missed a bunch of tap-ins, I've heard. But really, they can't really do much against Chelsea. But I think it'll be a seriously close game. I think Burnley might even, in fact, deserve it. But Brentford, you know, they've got Ericsson, they're in positive after last game, and they're also home. And they've also got a decent start of the season. So it shows that Brentford can get a win a lot of the time. They can definitely perform. And I think they'll start performing soon. Maybe even next game, like I've said here. But I don't think they're performing like amazingly. I just think enough to stay up. Moving on, Manchester United home against Spurs. And I'm going to say 2-2. Now, Man United lost 4-1 against Man City. They seem to be drawing a lot, Man United. That's also why I've gone for a draw here. Spurs have been absolutely brilliantly. Absolutely fantastic. But, you know, Man United, they do draw a lot of the time. So Spurs could easily get caught out. Especially that Man United, in my opinion, had a very good squad going into this season. I don't know what happened. Their starting 11 was looking really nice. Jadon Sancho, Rashford, you know, they had Ronaldo, for goodness sake. Absolutely brilliant. They still had De Gea in goal. He's an absolute beast in that goal. Even signed Varane. And a load of other players, which was absolutely brilliant. It was looking really hyped for them to even win the league. And then they started off, you know, a bit shaky and they just didn't perform. And recently they are performing again. But when they played against Man City, they're obviously not performing to the standard of title race. So they're performing to the standard around Spurs' standard, around that 6th spot standard. So I'm going to say 2-2. Moving on to a whole new day, 13th of March, and it's Chelsea home against my favourite team, Newcastle United. I'm going to say 2-1 to Chelsea. Now, I usually backed Newcastle up recently because that's their beautiful form. In the past 2 games that I predicted for Newcastle, I predicted right, which was 1-1 against West Ham and 2-1 win over Brighton, which was pretty good. Newcastle on very good form, but they're now away. Trippier is still not back, but they still do have some good positives. It's the fact they haven't lost in the past 8 games. But Chelsea, the way they played against Burnley, in 7 minutes they got 3 goals. Absolutely brilliantly. But Chelsea, you know, usually draw a lot, so I'm not saying Newcastle is impossible to get a point, or maybe 3 points, but I just think it's unlikely. It's probably more likely now than at the start of the season for Newcastle to get a point against Chelsea. But that's a good sign for Newcastle, and they're much more happier. The morale of the fans and everything, it's going really well for them. But I think there'll just be a blip in Newcastle's time, but let's see how they go. Moving on, Leeds United home against Norwich City. I'm going to go for Leeds United to win at 3-1. Leeds are home, but that's really the only positive I can take into it. Obviously, they still got amazing players, and Dan James, he's obviously not a striker, but he's playing there usually. But he's also got Rafinha, Jack Harrison, you know, he's got a good goalie in Meslier. but you're looking and you need that holding midfielder, and they probably need a centre-back, and they need a proper striker. You know, they haven't got that proper striker, which would have been Bamford. And then Killian Phillips was that CDM. But Marky Bielsa didn't perform to bring in a couple more signings to replace Bamford and Phillips temporarily. So he got sacked. The American guy came in. Still don't agree with Marky Bielsa getting sacked. But the American person came in, and I think he could get a win against Norwich. It's home. It's a fresh start, fresh manager. Don't see how it's going to make a difference though. But Norwich, they're not playing well. They lost 3-1 to Brentford. And Leeds seem to be getting a lot of shots. They just need Killian Phillips and Bamford back. Then they can start running positively. But I think this would be a good sign in the right direction. I think they're just about going to survive, Leeds. Let's see what happens. Moving on. Everton 1, Wolves 0 is what I'm going to predict for the next one. Now, you heard that right. I'm saying Everton to win, and they're 17th, and Wolves to lose, and they're 8th. Well, they're both on shocking form, really. Wolves lost 2-0 to Crystal Palace, but I don't think Wolves' situation's as bad as Everton. They brought in Rafa Benitez as manager, did absolutely doo-doo squat, and they're now sitting in 17th, 1 point away from Burnley, who's in the relegation zone. In my opinion, I think Everton would be fine. They did get 3-0 win against Leeds, so that's a sign, but that was like ages ago, like 4 weeks ago. But they're not getting any points. They lost 5-0 to Spurs, not looking good. But Wolves aren't looking good as well. But Wolves haven't got as much to fight for as Everton, and there is some sort of good performing players in Everton. It just hasn't came out this season. Well, it did at the start, but it stopped. They just need to finally perform like they used to. I think they still got it. They just need to use their players wisely. Moving on to the next game, West Ham are home against Aston Villa, and I'm going to predict 2-1 to Aston Villa. Yeah, that's right, I'm saying Aston Villa to win it after a whopping 4-0 win against Southampton. That's absolutely brilliant. I was not expecting that at all. But obviously, you know, they've got a great team. Felipe Coutinho, Jarrod as manager, Watkins, Danny Ings, who's been performing pretty good recently, in the past couple of years. They've got Bailey as well, Bunduia, all those kind of players. I should have seen it coming. Aston Villa, I think they're also going to win against West Ham. I think it's going to be a very close game. But Aston Villa's form, the amount of hype they got with Steven Gerrard, I think Steven Gerrard would be able to push for that win. But again, I still don't think West Ham will make it top 6. Our last game was obviously a loss against Liverpool, but it's Liverpool. You can't really do anything about that. They're really good and they're fighting for a lot. West Ham are as well, but I think they're still, again, I'm going to say they are still going to drop off in that 7th, 8th spot. Moving on, Southampton are home against Watford, and I'm going to say 2-1 to Watford. That's right. I think Southampton's last game is going to pour a lot of negativity onto them. I still think they're going to survive. I still think they could pick up a few more wins this season. I just don't think they're going to be as good as they were performing. Because Aston Villa, wiped them out. Wiped them out of the stadium. Watford, they need to find something soon. And they did push against Arsenal. They only lost 3-2. That wasn't bad. I predicted them to win. And it was actually a decently close game. So GG to Watford, you know. Again, they still have they can have good performing. They're just too inconsistent. You just don't know if they're going to perform. But recently, they haven't been performing. They did get a 0-0 draw against Man United. So there is something there. And they nearly got at least a point against Arsenal. So there is something they can brew out. And I think they will this time. Because they're going to have to get a win soon. Moving on, Arsenal home against Leicester City. I'm going to predict 2-2. Now, Leicester did get a good win against Leeds. 1-0. Again, Leicester, they're sitting in mid-table. But they have been pretty good. They managed to get 6 points in the last 2 games. Winning a solid 2-0 win over Burnley. And a 1-0 win against Leeds. Which, again, they're obviously not the greatest of teams. But that's basically telling you Leicester aren't really bad. So that's a good sign. And I think Arsenal, they're a very good team. I think I would probably say Arsenal to win. But Leicester, because they're going to be fighting for a lot more, because they're going to be fighting to try and get in that top 10 at least, to not feel embarrassed, I think it'll be quite a tight game between the two sides. Moving on to a whole new day. Crystal Palace are home against Manchester City. and I'm going to predict this 3-2 to Manchester City. I think it's going to be an interesting one on this Monday, because Crystal Palace previously won 2-0 against Man City, and they got some great players, you know, and they just won 2-0 against Wolves. They're in probably good positivity. They're not in a relegation battle. Not many negatives to bring out. They had a good summer transfer window. Maybe not the best January transfer window, but that doesn't matter. They still have a good solid team, and they have good history against Man City in recent times. So, I think it could possibly be a point, but Man City are fighting for much more. I think they'll just about get it, and also I think they've got a bit more good quality in Man City. That will be the end of my video. Hopefully you can like and subscribe, and always remember to turn on notifications to never miss one of my fantastic YouTube videos. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.